Good evening. Today our class will be on malignant melanoma. Though questions from malignant melanoma are very few and both can come in both undergraduate and postgraduate examination. So the questions may come as what are the causative factors or risk factors for the malignant melanoma, what are the different types of malignant melanoma, and how you can manage a case of malignant melanoma of leg or back, etc. So first to start with, what is the introductory part, that is what is melanoma? Melanoma are the tumors which are arising from melanocytes. Now, melanocytes are cells of neural crest origin that migrate during fetal development to multiply sites in the body, principally the skin, and it is positioned along the basement membrane at the dermo-epidermal junction. These cells are exposed to carcinogenic stimuli that result in malignant transformation to become a melanoma. So, coming to the epidemiology and etiology, melanoma is outcome of different factors. Actually, these tumors more common in white people than blacks. The disease occur much less commonly in Asian and black population. So it is mainly seen in the Western countries. Male are predominantly affected than female, and the prognosis is slightly better for women. The anatomic distribution is also differing in case of men and women. Melanomas arise more commonly on the lower extremity in women and more often on the trunk and head and neck in men. Melanoma can occur at any age from birth to advanced age, but the median age of diagnosis is the range of 45 to 55 years, that is 4 to 5 decades. Tumors rarely develop before the age of puberty, and significant incidence is seen in the third and fourth decades of life. And the most importantly, exposure to sunlight, especially solar ultraviolet radiation, increases the risk for the development of melanoma in susceptible populations. UVA and UVB cause different patterns of effect in the skin, though both are considered to be carcinogenic in the development of melanoma. It is reported that people incurring severe burns in childhood appear to be at higher risk for the development of melanomas years later. In contrast, those who receive exposure on a regular basis may not be at a high risk. The highest risk population appears to be individuals with a fair complexion who receive intermittent doses of radiation that result in severe sunburns. Additional factors that increase the risk for development of melanoma include dysplastic nevus syndrome, xeroderma pigmentosum, a history of non-melanoma skin cancer, a family history of melanoma. The risk for melanoma increases with age. With increased age, there is more opportunity for the initiation of new tumors, either through exposure to carcinogens like UV radiation or through the decreasing ability of individual cells to repair DNA damage. So the prevalent lesions are dysplastic nevi, congenital nevi, and Spitz nevi. Individuals with congenital nevi have an increased risk that is proportional to the size of and number of the nevi. Small congenital nevi representing a low risk, and that patient should be observed. Giant congenital nevi are rare and carry an increased risk for the development of melanoma within the nevi. Next come dysplastic nevi. They may occur sporadically or in a familial pattern. Individuals with dysplastic nevi and a family history of melanoma have an extremely high risk for the development of melanoma. Patients with dysplastic nevi syndrome, like BK mole syndrome, familial atypical mole melanoma syndrome, have multiple nevi that is more than 100 that present in the patient's body, and it is a great challenge to the patient and physician to have it treated. Next, Spitz nevi like juvenile melanoma, spindle cell melanoma, and epithelioid cell melanoma. They are rapidly growing pink or brown benign skin lesions, most often in children and adolescents. And these nevi are the precursor lesions for the melanoma in case of young aged individuals, though adult skin lesions may also have spitzoid features. Now, what are types of melanoma? They are superficial spreading, nodular melanoma, lentigo-maligna melanoma, and acral lentiginous melanoma. Superficial spreading melanoma, the most common form of melanoma, with 80% occurrence, approximately one half arising from a pre-existing mole. The lesions usually are slow growing and brown with color, with small discrete nodules of different colors. They tend to spread laterally, but can be slightly elevated. They found most commonly on the back in men and women and on the lower extremities of women. Nodular melanoma or nodular sclerosis, the most aggressive form, rapidly becoming a palpable elevated firm nodule that may be dense black or reddish blue blackish. A distinct convex nodular development indicates deep dermal invasion. Nodular melanomas arise from the epidermal dermal junction and invade deeply into the dermis and subcutaneous tissues. Approximately 5% are amelanotic. Lentigo maligna melanoma, usually found in older patients as a large melanotic freckle on the temple or malar region known as Hutchinson's freckle. It is usually slow growing but becomes large, often reaching up to 5 to 6 centimeters. Initially, it is flat, but it becomes raised and thicker with discrete brown to black nodules and irregular edges. Acral lentiginous melanoma occurs on the palms, soles, and nail beds. Occurs primarily in dark-skinned people. It metastasizes more frequently than do other melanomas, possibly related to later stage at presentation. Now, there are two terms which should be remembered. They are in-transit metastasis and satellites. Both signify a poor prognosis with a high risk of local recurrence and distant metastasis. In-transit metastases are lesions in the skin more than 2 centimeters from the primary lesion. They arise from tumor cells in intradermal lymphatics. Satellites are metastatic lesion in the skin within 2 centimeters of the primary tumor. History and risk factors. A history for melanoma should include an assessment of risk factors and family history. Each of the risk factors listed is considered to carry a more than threefold increase in risk factor for melanoma. The presence of 3 or more risk factors carries approximately 20 times the risk. They are family or personal history of melanoma, blonde or red hair, freckling of the upper back, 3 or more blistering sunburns before age 20 years, presence of actinic lesions or keratosis, blue, green, or gray eyes. Clinical features. Early melanoma and dysplastic lesions can be recognized by the features highlighted in the menomic ABCD, and or you can also see ABCDE, A for asymmetry, B for irregularity of border, C for color variegation, and D for diameter greater than 6 millimeters, and E for evolution. Advanced lesions are more rapidly apparent and may be nodular or ulcerated. Now, there are two classifications. One is Clark classification and one is Breslow classification, with the help of which we can stage the melanoma and also can have a plan for treatment. Clark classifications, that is level of invasion of melanoma. Level 1 is lesions involving only the epidermis. This is called in situ melanoma, not an invasive lesions. Level 2, invasion of the papillary dermis but does not reach the papillary reticular dermal interface. Level 3, invasion fills and expands the papillary dermis but does not penetrate the reticular dermis. Level 4, invasion of the reticular dermis, that is known as spans the reticular dermis but not into the subcutaneous tissue. Level 5, invasion through the reticular dermis into the subcutaneous tissue. These are the pictorial presentation of Clark's level. Next, Breslow staging. Based upon absolute depth of invasion, stage 1 is up to 0.75 millimeter of invasion, stage 2 0.75 to 1.5, stage 3 is 1.5 to 4, and stage 4 more than 4 millimeter. Now, what are the bases of staging? The Breslow thickness, a physical depth measurement, the primary tumor, is used to classify the tumor. Imaging consisting of computed tomography, chest, abdomen, and pelvis, or positive emission tomography should be obtained for patients presenting with an advanced primary tumor, that is T4B, stage 3 or higher patients, or for patients with symptoms concerning for advanced disease. Now, this is the American Joint Committee on Cancer definition or melanoma. TIS, that is melanoma in situ, T1 less than 1 millimeter thickness and ulceration status. There is a breast flow classification. There is breast flow less than 0.8 millimeter without ulceration, and B is breast flow 0.8 to 1 millimeter without ulceration or less than 1 millimeter with ulceration. T2 1.1 to 2. A is without ulceration, B is with ulceration. Same is T3, that is 2.1 to 4. That is A is without ulceration, B is with ulceration, and T4 is more than 4 centimeter, 4 millimeter, that is without ulceration, and B is with ulceration. Next, N1 is number of 0 to 1, clinically detectable is clinically occurred or clinically detected. C is no nodes, but microsatellite is present. N2 is 1 to 3. A is 2 to 3 nodes clinically occurred, no microsatellite inclusions. B is 2 to 3 nodes clinically detected, no microsatellite inclusion. And N2C is 1 node clinical occurred, but microsatellite inclusions are present. N3 is number of nodes more than 1. A is more than 3 nodes, all clinically occurred, no microsatellite inclusions. B is more than 3 nodes, more than equal to 1 clinically detected or matted, no microsatellite inclusions. And C, more than 1 node clinically occurred, microsatellite inclusions are present. Now distance messages are like this. M1D not assessed, that is serum LDH. It is classified according to serum LDH and site of lesion. They are M1A to D, M1A to D0, and M1 to D1. So according to level of LDH and site, they are classified according to metastasis. Now this is a treatment plan which is mostly accepted nowadays for the melanoma. That is, if it is stage 0 in situ, excision with 5 millimeter margins, stage 1 less than 1 millimeter thick, excision with 1 centimeter margins, stage 1 to 3, 1 to 4 millimeter thick, and stage 3 more than or equal to 4 millimeter thick. Chest X-ray is optional, LD is optional. Evaluation for lymphatic mapping and sentinel lymph node biopsy. If it is there, excision 2 centimeter margin without mapping, or excise with 2 centimeter margin and mapping and sentinel lymph node biopsy. If node negative, go for the treatment, and node positive, completion lymph node dissection or other therapies like molecular targeted or immunotherapies. Coming to the treatment proper, the mainstay of the treatment is surgery. And among the surgeries, wide local excision. It is the primary treatment for most melanomas and pre-malignant lesions. Melanomas in situ should be excised to clean margins. For all other malignant melanomas, the width of surgical margin depends on the breast or tumor thickness. Thin melanomas, that is breast less than 1 millimeter, should have a margin of 1 centimeter. Lesion thicker than 1 millimeter and all scalp lesions should have a margin of at least 2 centimeters. So this is the treatment plan according to thickness, and what is the margin should be excised. Now regarding sentinel lymph node biopsy, it has greatly enhanced accurate staging of melanoma. In routine SLNB is not recommended for patients with thin melanoma that are T1A non-ulcerated lesions less than 0.8 millimeter in breast thickness. SLNB may be considered for thin melanomas that are T1B 0.1 to 1 millimeter breast thickness or less than 0.8 millimeter breast thickness with ulceration. After a discussion on the benefits and risks, SLN is recommended for lesions of T2 or above. Completion lymph node dissection. Previously performed on all patients with a positive SLNB. However, it has not been shown to be associated with overall melanoma specific survival in 2 phase 3 studies. It is increased the rate of regional disease control and provided prognostic information, but did not increase melanoma specific survival among patients with SL, that is sentinel lymph node metastasis. If a patient has a positive sentinel lymph node, CLND versus active nodal basin surveillance should be considered. Elective lymph node dissection. The term elective refers to lymph node dissection done in the absence of clinical evidence palpable nodes, though it is not nowadays recommended. Now, therapeutic lymph node dissection recommended for clinically and biopsy positive axillary and superficial inguinal lymph nodes. That is unless unresectable distant metastases are present. Surgical therapy of the inguinal region includes a superficial inguinal lymphadenectomy with extension to the deep ileoinguinal region, including the iliac and obturator lymph nodes. If there is radiographic evidence of lymph node involvement or Clockett's node is positive. It should be considered if there are clinically positive inguinofemoral nodes or 3 or more positive sentinel lymph nodes. Of note, currently there are clinical trials for neoadjuvant treatment in patients with clinical stage 3 disease. Clinical stage 3 or oligometastatic stage 4 BRAF V600D or BRAF V600K mutated melanoma was treated with neoadjuvant plus adjuvant dabrafenib and trametinib. Now, next come resection of the metastasis. The surgical options for patients with metastatic melanoma can be divided into two categories, curative or palliative. Curative intent surgery for a metastatic melanoma should carefully weigh the risks and benefits of the surgery. Favorable factors include long disease-free intervals, fewer metastatic sites, responsiveness to targeted systemic therapy, good functional status. With the advent of more effective systemic therapy, surgery for refractory metastatic disease is becoming more common. Complications are exclusion include functional disability, infection, and difficulty with wound healing. For patients who have undergone lymphadenectomy, lymphedema is a substantial problem. Next comes regional therapy with isolated limb perfusion or isolated limb infusion. It is used for recurrent limb melanoma that is locally advanced and cannot be resected by simple surgical means. ILP delivers high-dose regional chemotherapy and establishes a hyperthermic environment to an extremity while its circulation has been isolated from the rest of the body. Melphalan is commonly used. Next is intralesional therapy. It is indicated for unresectable satellite or in-transit metastasis. There is a talimogene lahe parapavec, that is TVEC, a herpes simplex virus derivative agent designed to selectively replicate within tumor and produce granulocyte macrophage colony stimulatory factor, that is GM-CSF, to enhance systemic anti-tumor immune responses. It has demonstrated a greater durable response rate than subcutaneous GM-CSF in advanced melanoma. TVEC was associated with a response rate lasting more than 6 months in patients with unresectable melanoma. Interleukin-2, Bacillus calmette-guerin, that is BCG, and interferon are additional second-line options. Next come local therapy. Can also be utilized for palliation of unresectable in-transit metastasis, consist of topical imiquimod, laser ablation, or radiation therapy. Next comes systemic therapy. There will be immunotherapy. Specifically, checkpoint inhibitors has revolutionized melanoma treatment. Blockade of inhibitory receptors, that is CTLA4 and programmed cell death 1 enhances T-cell mediated anti-tumor immune responses, leading to improved survival and durable response. A monoclonal antibody against CTLA4 in resected stage 3 melanoma demonstrated improved recurrence-free survival. High-dose ipilimumab is approved as adjunct treatment in stage 3 disease. Other monoclonal antibodies are pembrolizumab, nivolumab, monoclonal antibodies against programmed cell death inhibitor 1. Interleukin-2 is considered second-line therapy for metastatic disease. Among the targeted molecular agents, vemurafenib and dabrafenib are small molecule inhibitors of BRAF that have shown clinical efficacy in patients with the V600 mutation. Cobimetinib and trametinib are small molecule inhibitors of MEK and affected downstream of BRAF. Combination therapies with BRAF and MEK inhibitors have demonstrated improved efficacy over BRAF therapy alone for patients with V600 BRAF mutations. So this is all about malignant melanoma. So in case of post-graduation, you have to go for all these parameters, all these treatment protocol with some phase 3 trials. And in case of undergraduate, you should not have to remember all these things, just the types of treatment or different forms of treatment and the few names. So that's all. So again, you can have the access of this video in my website, that is orcosearch.com. Link will be given there, and you can also download the PDF of this presentation, though it has to be some correction to be there, along with all the questions of mainly undergraduate standards question coming in the skin tumor and soft tissue sarcoma chapter. So skin and soft tissue is a separate chapter, and if you want to go through the books, you have to go for the skin and soft tissue tumor chapter in Washington Manual of Surgery for both postgraduate and undergraduate, and also for postgraduate substance surgery textbook. So that's all. Good night.